Now, the last market structure is called as oligopoly. The defining characteristic of oligopoly is that it's a market structure where we have a small number of large-sized firms. So the market has only a few sellers, but all of those sellers are significant. The number of sellers is small, which means that every single seller has an impact in the market. Small number of large size firms makes all firms significant. The real world examples include the airline industry, where there are only a small number of airlines which operate, which means that every single airline operator has an impact. If a single airline operator decides to leave the market, the remaining players, which are only a few in number, will see a huge increase in demand, will see a huge increase in their profits. In many countries, telecommunication is usually falls under the market structure of oligopoly, where the entire telecommunication sector is being controlled by 4 or 5 firms. And now, how is that possible? This is possible because of the high barriers to entry and exit. The products can be homogeneous or they can be differentiated. If you take the example of OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, they are producing homogeneous products, and this is an example of an oligopoly. If you take example of airline industry, there again is an example of oligopoly, but they are selling differentiated products because services being provided by one airline is different than services being provided by the other airlines. So in oligopoly, firms can sell homogeneous products or they can sell differentiated products. Most of the cases, the products being sold in oligopoly are differentiated. Why is that? Because most of the cases, firms aim at becoming a monopoly. Even when they are operating in an oligopoly, they try to grab as large the market share as is possible. How is that doable? They can make a brand and they try to propagate their brand. They want to earn loyal customers so that the other firms either leave the industry or they merge with them. That's how the firms usually aim at. Another defining characteristic of oligopoly is what we call as interdependence. So the first defining characteristic was small number of large-sized firms, and the second defining characteristic is interdependence. What is interdependence? Interdependence is where a firm's profits depend not only on its own actions, but also on the behavior of the other firms. So if, as was said earlier, if we talk about the airline industry, one particular airline decides to just cancel their operations between one point and the other, which was a busy route, all other airlines operating on the same route will see a remarkable increase in their business, will see a major increase in their profits. Similarly, if one of the airlines decides to slash the fares by 40%, all the airlines in the industry will see a reduction in their profits because they will lose their customers. In order to retain their customers, all of them will have to reduce the prices. So an action of a single firm resulted in reduced profits for all the firms. This is what we call as interdependence. Keep in mind that in perfect competition and monopolistic competition, number of firms was really large. When number of firms was really large, there was no interdependence because an action by a single firm has a negligibly small impact on the entire industry. When we talk about monopoly, there was only a single firm, which means that there is no interdependence. However, in oligopoly, number of firms is small, which means every firm is significant. Hence, action of one firm will have a major impact on the other firms. Now, this interdependence between firms results in a peculiar demand curve, something that we call as a kinked demand curve. Now, what is kinked demand curve and what is price rigidity? These two concepts are linked. Now, the interdependence was what? If one firm reduces the price, other firms also have to reduce the price, because if they don't do that, they lose their customers. Which means what? A reduction in price is matched by the competitors. Yeah. So a reduction in price is matched by the competitors, resulting in lower profits, maybe losses for the entire industry. However, if a single firm decides to increase its price, what will happen? The existing firms will see an increase in their profits without doing anything at all. Why? Because when a single firm out of a small number of firms decides to increase its price, for example, one of the 5 airlines decides to increase the airfares, the other operators, airline operators, will see an increase in their demand, will see an increase in their profits. Yeah. So this is what is interdependence. This is what will explain us the kinked demand curve. Now, kinked demand curve is drawn like this. Let me show you the complete drawing of the kinked demand curve. We make the axis with price and quantity, and we put a dot as a starting point. Now, this is a starting point, which means that P naught was the starting price and Q naught was the starting quantity. If a firm decides to reduce the price, all the firms have to reduce the price. When all the firms reduce the price, no firm see a major rise in their demand. So a price is reduced, but demand does not increase by much. If you recall from the AS level, a reduction in price resulting in only a small increase in demand means that demand curve is inelastic, means that the demand curve is very steep. So as the price is reduced, the demand curve is very steep. As price goes down, demand goes up only a little. However, when we increase the price, what happens is slightly different, because when we increase the price, the competitors will not increase the price. When they do not increase the price, we lose our customers. When we lose our customers, there will be a remarkable reduction in demand of our products. Again, recall from the AS level, recall from the topic of elasticity, a change in price bringing about a large change in demand, making demand curve elastic. So as the price is increased, demand falls a lot, demand curve is very flat. As price goes up, demand falls a lot. And this results in a kinked demand curve. Now, when firms observe this kinked demand curve, they learn a lesson. What lesson do they learn? They learn that reducing a price results in lower profits. Increasing a price also results in lower profits. So they are better off if they do not change the price of their products. Hence, they decide to keep prices unchanged. the word rigid prices. So price rigidity basically is something that firms learn over time. In the beginning, they may do various experiments. They may decide to reduce the price, earn a loss. They may decide to increase the price, again earn a loss. Ultimately, they get settled at the predetermined price. So the price being charged in the long run will be a predetermined price, as is there in the diagram. So this explains the behavior of a firm operating in oligopoly as long as firms do not collude. What happens when firms collude will be discussed in the next lecture.